Hi everybody, today we are going to paint some horses. Well, actually, it's going to be more or less the same horse in different styles. Let's begin with the basics of drawing. If you're not very familiar with drawing horses, we have already gone through this a few times before and we'll be using the same approach here. You simply start with a small triangular shape and add a circle to it, and before you know it, you already have your horse head. So it's very simple. Today we'll be painting 4 versions of the same head. So it's going to be a very simple and approachable exercise, but the idea is that by trying different approaches, you can develop your own painting skills. The main goal of today's exercise is to explore different styles so that you can adapt what you already know and use it to develop your own visual language. The main focus, once again, is on exploring possibilities. All right, the first one. It has a more naturalistic approach. To keep things simple, I've used only 2 colors. All the shadows and highlights you see are created purely through variations in the paint's intensity. I am using acrylic paint on a textured paper, which has a bit of a canvas feel. Basically, I am laying down a single block of color as the base of the composition, and that's really all there is to it. The only thing I am focusing on here is following the natural flow of the lines, which gives the whole piece a more organic feel. This makes everything look more natural and fluid. Once the first layer of paint is dry and acrylics dry quite quickly, you can go with your second color. In this case, I'm using a very dark blue, nearly black. As you probably know by now, I like to mix my own colors. So everything you see here was created with just these 2 colors, okay? Now, here's the thing. Most people, especially those without formal training, are naturally inclined to try painting in this style. And that's perfectly fine. However, when you choose to represent the natural world, you're committing to a certain level of realism. That means you need to pay careful attention to things like shadows, highlights, light direction, color choices, values, proportions. If any of those elements are slightly off, it will show, okay? Hence, the importance of practicing. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. However, even before mastering all that, I believe you can still make excellent use of your skills by working in a way that requires less commitment to realism. For the next version, we are going to simplify things. It's essentially the same drawing, but we're painting it using just 2 colors, one for the background and one for the subject itself. And those colors can be anything, really, as long as there's good contrast between them. Unlike the first piece, we are not trying to replicate nature here, and that gives us a lot more freedom to experiment with color, shape, even with abstraction. The one thing I still think it's worth paying attention to is the direction of the brush strokes. They should still follow the natural flow of the subject. So even though it's more abstract, there's still a sense of structure and intention. By doing this, you're showing that everything in the piece is deliberate. The next two versions will take this even further. They're going to be near abstractions of the horse. It is still the same head, it's still the same horse, but now we are working in a much more expressionistic style. And again, because we're not bound to the natural world, we have the freedom to be less concerned about lighting, tone, and anatomical precision. We can simply paint what the horse feels like to us. To add a bit of energy to this version, I'm using oil pastels to outline the edges. And here's the fun part. Make these lines as wild as you like. Don't try to keep them neat or straight. The more chaotic, the better. It adds movement and character to your composition. You can also add a second color to create some highlights, but that's optional. And I really like how this one turned out. And finally, for the last one, I'm not even going to sketch or use any brushes. This entire piece will be done with a sponge and the oil pastels. Okay? By applying the paint directly with the sponge, I'm making the horse even more expressive. I'll just add 2 or 3 layers of color to create some intensity and depth. Then, just like the previous one, I'll mark the edges using the oil pastels. Even though this one might be my least favorite of the series, I still think it's a valuable experiment. And that's the whole point. It's all about experimenting and discovering how you can express yourself through your paintings. Once again, the main takeaway here is that when you free yourself from the pressure of replicating the natural world, you open up to create your own version of nature. And here are the results of what we created today. I hope you've learned something new today, and I really hope that this inspires you to go off and create your own experimental illustrations. As always, keep on practicing, and thank you for joining us.